Deen the Great just blew up his own empire over Chrisean Rock, and what he texted up is the most pathetic thing in streaming history. So the whisper going around the whole timeline right now is that Deen the Great, the same Deen who runs one of the loudest gyms in streaming, just detonated his entire warehouse operation in front of every camera in the building, and the reason he lost it, the reason the man is texting the production team like a jealous middle schooler passing notes, is Chrisean Rock. Yeah, Chrisean. The same Chrisean Rock people have been begging him to keep away from AB for months. Sources close to that warehouse are alleging Deen didn't just have an off day, he had a full-blown identity meltdown, and the wildest part is he did it in front of the exact audience he spends every stream trying to impress. Supposedly. Just supposedly. But if the whisper is real, and every clip leaking out of that room says it is, Deen the Great isn't the alpha he's been selling. He's the understudy who finally realized the spotlight was never his. And once you see that clip play back, the corner sitting, the sulking, the little side mouth mumbles, you can't unsee it. That's the kind of moment careers don't recover from without a hard rebrand, and Deen the Great is not built for a rebrand. Deen the Great is built for a warehouse he controls. And that warehouse just got audited in front of the entire timeline. Listen, some of you have been screaming this at your screens for a year straight, and I'm not going to pretend I didn't see the tweets. You said Deen was possessive. You said Deen was territorial around AB. You said Deen doesn't actually have a problem with women in the gym, he has a problem with anyone who pulls attention off him for more than 8 seconds. Well, catch this part, the man just handed you the receipt, gift-wrapped, on his own stream, in his own building, with his own staff standing there watching him crumble. And the person he chose to crumble in front of is arguably the most unbothered chaos agent in the entire culture right now, Chrisean Rock. Let that marinate for a second. Deen the Great didn't fold in front of Kai. He didn't fold in front of Aiden. He didn't fold in front of Sneeko or DDG or any of the streamer tier peers who could actually challenge his authority. He folded in front of Chrisean Rock, a woman whose whole resume is walking into rooms she wasn't invited to and walking out with the highlight reel. If Deen the Great can't hold his composure around Chrisean Rock, what exactly is he going to do when the real predators of the algorithm show up at his door? Now for anybody just tuning in, here's the setup, and I need you to sit with the pettiness of it. AB, the same AB whose star is climbing faster than anybody in that circle, invited Chrisean Rock to pull up to a training session at Deen the Great's warehouse. AB extended the invite, AB wanted her there, AB was excited about it. Deen wasn't told. Deen wasn't consulted. And the moment Chrisean walked through that door, Deen the Great went from streamer to sulking husband in about 45 seconds flat. She said hi. He gave her a hi that wasn't a hi. He gave her the kind of hi you give somebody when you already scripted the argument in your head. And Chrisean, being Chrisean, clocked it instantly and told everybody watching exactly what she saw, that Deen was intimidated, that Deen was sitting in his little corner, that Deen was basically running AB like a puppet and got mad the strings weren't working that day. But peep this, Deen didn't deny the sulking. He denied the reason. He came out publicly and said, and I'm paraphrasing loosely because the man was ranting, that he never invited Chrisean Rock in the first place, that AB brought her, that his energy was off because he's team Blueface till the wheels fall off, and that Chrisean Rock came into his warehouse rude to his staff, entitled to his production, and running her mouth about an NDA she'd already signed. He said she flashed messages on stream that weren't even his messages. He said he doesn't even have her number. And then, in the same breath, he tried to reposition himself as the mature one, the humble one, the man who walked away so the moment wouldn't turn into a scene. Humble. That was the word he reached for. Humble. Say it out loud and tell me if it fits the man who allegedly texted an entire production team, the white executives, the money people, the deal signers, everybody, texting them in real time trying to make AB feel guilty for winning a workout that wasn't even about Deen the Great in the first place. Rewind that. Because that's the part nobody in the whole conversation is slowing down for. Deen didn't just get quiet. Deen didn't just leave the room. Deen the Great allegedly opened up a group chat with the suits and started campaigning. In the middle of the session. While AB was actively explaining the drill to Chrisean. That is not the behavior of a man who runs a warehouse. That is the behavior of a man who is terrified the warehouse might run itself without him. And let me tell you something about warehouses. Warehouses don't need a face. Warehouses need throughput. If AB can keep pulling stars into that building without Deen the Great's blessing, then Deen the Great is not the CEO of anything. He's the doorman with a title. And doormen who forget their doormen tend to lose their doors. Now I want to be fair here, because I try to be fair even when a man is embarrassing himself in 8-minute intervals. Deen the Great is not wrong that Chrisean Rock is complicated. Deen the Great is not wrong that Chrisean Rock has a documented history of walking into rooms and treating staff like NPCs. Every single person who's ever put a mic in front of Chrisean Rock has come out the other side with a story, and half of those stories involve receipts. So when Deen the Great says Chrisean came in with an attitude, I don't roll my eyes. I nod. Because Chrisean Rock has never once in her public life pretended to be an easy hang. She'll tell you herself she isn't. She wears it like a chain. And that's actually the reason she wins these arguments in the culture. Chrisean Rock never asks you to like her. She only asks you to keep watching. And you do. Every single time. Deen the Great can list her flaws for 11 straight minutes and it doesn't move the needle, because Chrisean Rock already told you those flaws are the price of admission. Deen the Great missed the memo. He thought he was exposing something. He was reciting the brand. But, and this is the fork in the road, being difficult isn't the same as being wrong. Chrisean Rock can be rude to the staff and correct about Deen the Great being intimidated. Both things can live in the same warehouse at the same time. That is called a Tuesday in this culture. And the fact that Deen keeps trying to make it either slash or, keeps trying to frame it like proving Chrisean was rude somehow disproves that he was jealous, that right there is the tell. That's the leak in the argument. Because if the man was genuinely unbothered, he wouldn't need to file a rebuttal at all. Unbothered men don't post 9-minute clarifications. Unbothered men don't text production. Unbothered men don't announce their team allegiances in the middle of somebody else's workout. Unbothered men don't need a chorus. Unbothered men don't need executives. Unbothered men, most importantly, don't need to keep saying the word unbothered. And every single one of those tells is stamped across Deen the Great's face in that clip. Every single one. And speaking of team allegiances, let's talk about that. Deen the Great looked into a camera on his own platform and said, quote unquote, I'm Team Blueface, cuz. He said it twice for the algorithm. Team Blueface. In the year of our Lord, this year, with everything Blueface has been through, with everything Blueface has publicly admitted to, with the entire cultural jury having already reached a verdict on how Blueface treated Chrisean Rock during their relationship, Deen the Great is out here running a loyalty campaign for Blueface like he's up for re-election. And I want you to sit with what that means. Because it doesn't just mean Deen doesn't rock with Chrisean. It means Deen has already picked a side in a domestic war he was never actually a soldier in. It means when Chrisean walked into that warehouse, in Deen's head, she wasn't a guest AB invited. She was an enemy combatant. And you don't invite enemy combatants into your training camp. You escort them out. But Deen the Great couldn't escort Chrisean Rock out, because AB was the one who let her in, and if Deen the Great overrode AB in front of Chrisean Rock in front of a live camera, the whole warehouse would have seen exactly who wears the crown in that circle. So Deen the Great did the next best thing. He sulked. He texted. He picked a team. He performed loyalty for an absent third party because he couldn't perform authority for the guest in front of him. That is not just embarrassing. That is a case study. Now catch this, Chrisean Rock, in her version of the story, said Deen the Great is a hater. She said Deen kicked her out. She said Deen the Great, Deen the Great, Deen the Great, she said the name so many times the algorithm probably indexed her live stream twice. And that repetition, that hammering of Deen the Great's name into the timeline, is the exact thing Deen was trying to avoid when he walked away from the moment. He didn't walk away because he was above it. He walked away because he knew the second the camera swung to him he was going to look small next to a woman whose whole brand is refusing to look small. That's why he texted AB. That's why he texted production. That's why he didn't say a word to Chrisean face to face. Because Chrisean Rock in a hallway is a fair fight. Chrisean Rock on a stream is a fair fight. But Deen the Great needed a group chat and a couple of executives before he felt safe enough to swing. And that is the tell that tells all the other tells. Because the streamer who owns the room does not need corporate backup to eject a guest from the room. The streamer who owns the room says, you're done, and the guest is done. Deen the Great didn't say, you're done. Deen the Great said, please, somebody else, tell her she's done. There is a version of masculinity Deen the Great has been performing on camera for years, and that text message is the receipt that the performance was never the reality. Let me slow down and give you the anatomy of the text, because this is the part that should end careers. Deen the Great allegedly hit AB's phone with a message that read something like, and I'm cleaning it up for delivery, listen, I'm a man, I don't be on this BS, but I don't think it's the right time to train, the energy is off, on some real, I mess with you heavy, but AB, I think it's best that. And then it trailed off. Because he couldn't finish the sentence. He couldn't say what he actually wanted, which was, get her out of my building. He wanted AB to read the room and do the dirty work for him. He wanted AB to eject Chrisean Rock so Deen the Great could keep his hands clean and still get the outcome he wanted. That is not the move of a man who is comfortable in his own gym. That is the move of a man who is terrified of the woman AB is standing next to. And terror is the correct word here. I'm not exaggerating for the algorithm. When a man asks a third party to do what he could easily do himself, in a building he allegedly owns, in front of a woman he allegedly outranks, that man is scared. Full stop. The only question is what he's scared of. And I think the answer is simpler than anybody wants to admit. Deen the Great is scared that Chrisean Rock, given a fair mic and a fair minute, would say something about him that the timeline would believe. And Deen the Great cannot afford to be believed against. Not right now. Not with AB standing there watching. And AB, because AB is not stupid, AB reads a room better than any of them, didn't take the bait. AB kept training. AB kept explaining the drill. AB let Chrisean Rock finish the workout. And that decision, that one micro-decision by AB, is what actually broke Deen the Great in half. Because Deen wasn't just mad that Chrisean was there. Deen was mad that AB didn't need his permission for Chrisean to be there. Deen was mad that AB chose Chrisean Rock's presence over Deen the Great's comfort. And when a man realizes he doesn't actually control the person he thought he controlled, that man breaks down publicly. That man cries on the stream. That man texts the production. That man declares himself Team Blueface. That man loses the plot. That man becomes the plot. That man turns into the exact kind of content he built his brand pretending to be above. And once you become the story, you don't get to write it anymore. The timeline writes it. And the timeline has already written Deen the Great's chapter in this arc, and the chapter title is not flattering. Property of the internet, that's what this moment is now. Deen the Great can post 10 more clarifications and it doesn't matter. The timeline saw a man run his warehouse like a fiefdom and lose it because a guest walked in without his royal seal. The timeline saw Deen the Great turn a training session into a hostage negotiation. The timeline saw Chrisean Rock, of all people, walk out of that warehouse looking calmer than the man who owns the warehouse. Read that sentence back. Chrisean Rock, the woman the culture uses as a byword for chaos, walked out looking calmer than Deen the Great. If that doesn't make you rethink who's actually running who in that dynamic, nothing will. And this is the part where the internet always gets it right before the mainstream catches up. The internet doesn't need a press release to figure out who cracked. The internet watches the eyes. The internet watches the shoulders. The internet watches which person left the room first, which person kept training, which person kept smiling. And by every one of those metrics, Chrisean Rock did not lose that afternoon. Deen the Great did. Now let's talk about AB, because AB is the ghost in this whole story and nobody's saying his name enough. AB is the reason Chrisean pulled up. AB is the reason Deen the Great couldn't just kick her out on sight. AB is the reason the workout continued. AB is, functionally, the reason Deen the Great's authority in that warehouse got exposed as ceremonial. Because if Deen actually ran the room, Deen would have said, she's not coming in, and it would have been done. But he didn't say that. He couldn't say that. Because AB has grown into a name that Deen can't override anymore, and Deen the Great is only just now realizing it. That's the humiliation underneath the humiliation. Deen didn't just lose to Chrisean Rock. Deen lost to the version of AB that no longer needs Deen the Great's approval. That is the sentence Deen the Great cannot bring himself to say out loud, because saying it out loud is admitting the balance of power in that friendship flipped a long time ago and Deen was the last to know. Every mentor in the culture eventually meets this moment. Every single one. The student gets a bigger check, a bigger following, a bigger table. And the mentor either evolves into a peer or ossifies into a hater. Deen the Great, based on that warehouse tape, is choosing ossify. Whisper going around says this isn't even the first time. Whisper going around says every time AB has a conversation with another streamer, another celebrity, another face the algorithm respects, Deen the Great pops up in AB's ear asking what they wanted, asking why AB is entertaining this person, asking whether they even put money in AB's pocket. Deen the Great, allegedly, has been doing the possession thing for a while, the little intercepts, the little hover, the little, let me talk to bro real quick energy. Chrisean Rock walking into that warehouse just accelerated a pattern that was already there. She didn't create the moment. She revealed it. And that is why the internet is treating this as bigger than a warehouse spat. Because when you finally get to see a man's insecurity out loud, on camera, in his own kingdom, you don't forget the shape of it. It's a shape you file away. It's a shape you reference every time that man tries to lecture somebody else about composure. It's the shape of a man who couldn't handle one afternoon with Chrisean Rock in a room he built. And every future guest who walks into that warehouse is going to walk in with that shape in the back of their mind, whether Deen the Great knows it or not. Now I know some of you are going to say, and I want to be honest with you, this is a fair pushback. Some of you are going to say Chrisean Rock made her own bed the second she showed messages on stream that were allegedly not real. And that's fair. If Chrisean Rock fabricated screenshots pretending they came from Deen the Great, that is a receipt problem, and receipts don't lie. Deen the Great is well within his rights to say those aren't his texts, that he doesn't even have her phone number, that whatever she waved on stream was pulled out of thin air. If that turns out to be true, and Deen is betting his whole reputation that it is, then Chrisean Rock is going to have a Chrisean-shaped problem to answer for. And knowing this culture, she'll answer for it the way she answers for everything, loud, unbothered, and on a live stream at 3 in the morning. But even that possibility doesn't undo the real story. The real story isn't whether Chrisean forged texts. The real story is that Deen the Great cracked open in real time long before any texts were shown. Because the texts, if they exist or don't exist, came after. The tantrum came first. The energy shift came first. The corner sitting came first. The refusal to say a real hi came first. The intimidation, the little digs, the you better say hi energy, that all came before any screen got flashed on any stream. So even if Chrisean Rock is lying about the texts, the underlying diagnosis of Deen the Great being intimidated by her presence in AB's orbit is untouched. You can be wrong about the receipt and right about the room. That is the trap Deen the Great walked into, and nobody is telling him. His entire defense strategy hinges on turning a receipts argument into a character argument, and the timeline is not that stupid anymore. The timeline can hold two thoughts at once. The timeline can say Chrisean Rock is messy and Deen the Great is jealous, and both statements can be entered into evidence at the same trial. That is the era of consumption we're in. Two things can be true. Deen the Great, apparently, still lives in the era of one. And here's the fork nobody wants to say out loud: Deen the Great, in the middle of trying to save face, told on himself twice. He told on himself once by declaring Team Blueface unprompted. He told on himself a second time by admitting he texted AB rather than talking to Chrisean directly. Both of those admissions do the same job. They confirm that his problem with Chrisean Rock is not, has never been, and will never be about staff behavior or NDA violations. His problem with Chrisean is that Chrisean Rock represents a version of AB's future that Deen the Great does not get to author. And a man who spent years positioning himself as AB's shepherd doesn't handle being edited out of the script gracefully. He handles it exactly like this. Publicly. Loudly. Team Blueface, cuz. Let me remind you what Deen the Great actually built, because I want to be fair. Deen built one of the most consistent training brands in streaming. Deen built a room that celebrities want to be in. Deen built a personality that fills a warehouse. Deen the Great is not a small figure in this culture, and pretending he is would be dishonest. That is precisely why this moment lands the way it lands. It's not shocking because he's nobody. It's shocking because he's somebody, and somebodies aren't supposed to fold like this on camera. You expect the meltdown from the guy trying to break in. You don't expect it from the guy who owns the warehouse. That is why the internet is chewing on this frame by frame right now. That is why every clip out of that room has 500,000 views by the time you finish this sentence. Because a fall from a chair is boring. A fall from a throne is content. Talking like a court witness, that's how the sources describe the way Deen has been recounting his side since the workout ended. Every retelling is more careful. Every retelling has more disclaimers. Every retelling stresses that he was calm, that he walked away, that he handled it like a man, that he didn't want to make a scene. And the more disclaimers a man stacks on the same story, the more we know the original version was uglier than he's willing to admit. Nobody who was actually calm needs to say they were calm 8 times. Nobody who actually didn't care needs to file a 9-minute breakdown. The over-explanation is the confession. It always is. So where does this leave the three of them? Chrisean Rock walks out of this with exactly what Chrisean Rock always walks out with: attention, momentum, and a fresh set of screenshots for the next cycle. Whether she forged texts or not, the story she's telling about Deen the Great being a hater is being received by the timeline as basically accurate, and she doesn't need to sell it any harder. AB walks out of this with a decision to make. Because AB just saw, in high definition, what Deen the Great looks like when Deen doesn't get his way, and AB is smart enough to know that a partner who texts production behind your back once will text production behind your back again. That relationship, whether Deen realizes it or not, just entered a new chapter, and Deen the Great is not the co-author anymore. And Deen walks out of this with a 9-minute video, a Team Blueface allegiance nobody asked for, and a warehouse full of people who now know that the man who runs the room only runs it as long as nobody interesting walks in. Household name heavyweights don't crack like this. That's the part that keeps replaying in my head. Household name heavyweights don't text executives mid-workout. Household name heavyweights don't declare team allegiances in a hallway. Household name heavyweights don't cry, on stream, because a guest didn't say hi the way they wanted her to. And that is why I keep coming back to the same conclusion. Deen the Great is not a household name heavyweight yet. He's a hand-picked lineup of moments that look like one. And Chrisean Rock, of all people, is the woman who finally made the makeup run down his face on camera. Now, listen, I want to hear from you, because I know some of you were Team Deen before this dropped, and I know some of you have been telling us for a year that Deen the Great was going to fold the moment somebody with a real spine walked into his room. So tell me. Was Chrisean Rock out of pocket for pulling up uninvited, running her mouth about an NDA, and possibly waving fake texts on stream? Or was Deen the Great fully exposed as a man who can't handle a woman he can't control, a man who runs a warehouse he doesn't actually own, and a man whose entire authority evaporates the second AB stops asking him for permission? You know where I stand. But this is your timeline as much as it is mine. Drop your side in the comments. Tell me who you're writing for. And if this is your first time on the channel, you already know the drill: hit like, hit subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.